The sky over New Santiago is thick with smoke, the skyline blurred where towers flicker with intermittent power. Streets buzz not with movement but tension. Protests crackle in pockets, food lines stretch for blocks, and every public screen loops with grim economic updates. Earth is tired, fractured by politics, strangled by resource wars, and fractured by mistrust. But that weariness shatters when the stars blink. A burst of light, impossible and deliberate, tears across the upper atmosphere. Satellites flicker, comms scramble, and then every device, phones, terminals, even analog radios, crackles to life with a signal that doesn't belong to Earth, not human. Not even close, a perfect tone, a voice that speaks in every language, yet none, cold, measured. It is not a greeting, it is a scan, a galactic audit. The Zenith Accord is watching. Their arrival is not an invitation, it's a test. They don't care how Earth answers. They already assume we'll fail. In the steel heart of Earth's fractured defense complex, voices shout over data streams. Generals, ministers, diplomats, everyone demanding answers they don't have. And through the chaos walks Commander Imani Reyes. No uniform, no escort. Just scars earned in wars no one wants to remember. Once hailed as a war hero, now exiled. For insubordination, she doesn't wait for permission. Eyes follow her, some in awe, most in suspicion. A voice cuts across the room. "You don't belong here, Reyes." Imani stops. "Neither do they," she says, gesturing to the screens where Zenith warships shimmer like blades of light. "But they're coming anyway." Her tone is cool, her posture calm. She doesn't demand attention, she commands it. The council doesn't admit it out loud, but when she speaks, they listen. And when she says, "We're thinking like prey," silence falls. Milo Chen watches from the edge of the room, barely out of cadet status. 17 years old, carrying a neural interface kit slung over his shoulder like a guitar case. He's heard the stories, watched old footage, read her playbooks, in secret forums. Now he sees her in person, and she's not what he expected, more tired, more human. But when she talks about survival, real survival, he sees the spark behind her eyes. He signs the transfer papers without telling his family. They won't understand why he's following a woman the world tried to forget. But he does. The Zenith. Transmission reaches Earth's core satellites and overrides them effortlessly. A hologram unfurls, sleek, sterile, and inhuman. It doesn't blink, doesn't pause, just delivers a message in every dialect known to man. Surrender within 30 rotations. Any resistance will be met with system cleansing. There's no anger, no emotion, just probability. A 99.99997% projected success rate. Zero variance. Then it vanishes. No offer to negotiate, no ambassador, just a countdown, like Earth is just another. File to delete. The council reacts in waves. Some scream, others demand compliance. Military AI begins modeling outcomes. None are survivable. The numbers say surrender is the only option, but numbers never carried a rifle. Imani stands, unmoved. "They think surrender means survival," she says. "But for us, surrender is extinction." The chamber buzzes with disbelief, but one by one, eyes shift toward her, not because she's right yet, but because she's the only one who isn't afraid to say what comes next. She walks through the outer fields of the Western Highlands, alone, the wind carrying the scent of scorched earth and wild grass. The graveyard is quiet, the stones marked not by age, but by resistance. Her father lies beneath one of them, retired engineer, activist, dissident. He taught her that survival wasn't about following rules. It was about breaking the right ones, at the right time. She kneels, brushing dust from the stone. No words, just a breath. Then she whispers, "We may lose, but we'll never kneel." A shadow crosses overhead, a Zenith surveillance drone, silent and watching. She looks up at it, unblinking. It doesn't react, but she knows they're listening. Let them. As she leaves, the graveyard, dusk falls. The world turns under a growing shadow. Above, zenith ships drift at the edges of the solar system, waiting for Earth's decision. Nations falter, cities grumble. The countdown ticks louder. But beneath the fear, something stirs, not weapons, not fleets, people. Milo configures his first signal jammer in an old comms tower outside Shanghai. An underground group in Mexico builds new code into vintage satellites. In Nairobi, 3 retired engineers turn an old radio array back on. The world may look like it's folding, but Imani knows better. The Accord expects surrender. She has other plans. The sky over Earth fractures with light. Not fire, not thunder, just silence. Cold, clinical silence, as Zenith scout ships descend from orbit like falling glass. They don't fire warning shots. They don't broadcast intent. They dismantle. One by one, Earth's outer orbital defenses vanish. Station Z14 goes offline mid-broadcast. Satellites meant to detect deep space threats flicker, then blink out like dying stars. Drones scramble to respond. They're intercepted, dissected, and transmitted back, empty husks spinning. In low orbit, in the control rooms below, human operators scream into broken channels. They're reacting, not fighting. Earth's strongest systems are obsolete before the enemy even finishes scanning. The Zenith don't fire like humans. They erase. Every move calculated, every response anticipated. This isn't a test. It's a survey. A final check before execution. They're not here to see if Earth will fight back. They already know what the simulations say. Inside the UN Emergency Council chamber, panic is masked by protocol. Suits and uniforms fill the room, every screen flashing red as reports stream in from every continent. AI advisors calculate probabilities with brutal efficiency. Seated in glass-walled corners, they deliver the same verdict. Earth has no chance. A 99.8% failure rate in full engagement. Lower odds with each delay. Generals argue for resistance. Diplomats speak of terms. Others plead for compromise, believing survival is worth any price. Some whisper of hope. Most speak only in percentages. The room is full of powerful people, and not a single one seems in control. They all want one thing, a clean answer. But war never gives clean answers. Imani Reyes stands in the center of the storm, calm, unapologetic, not asking for time, demanding attention. Her voice cuts through the room like static in silence. Your simulations are wrong. Heads turn. You're planning against what they expect. Linear strategies, clean maps, logic. A general scoffs. What do you suggest? Hope? She steps forward. I suggest unpredictability, chaos. Let's stop being readable. Silence. Someone mutters, that's madness. She doesn't blink. No, that's survival. The vote is swift. She's relieved of duty, stripped of rank. As 2 guards step forward, she walks without resistance. At the door, she turns once more. If you surrender, she says, it's not survival. It's obedience. And we weren't made for that. And then she's gone. Milo sits alone in his bunk, rage simmering beneath his skin. The feeds are silent now. No updates on Imani, just panic and projections. But he can't let it go. He digs into stolen Zenith files, raw, encrypted, dangerous. What he finds chills him deeper than any AI prediction. The Zenith have built their war plans on assumption, on patterns. They expect humans to follow orders, to act rationally, to seek survival above all else. Their doctrine depends on it. He uploads the data to underground networks, resistance forums, pirate relays, whisper feeds. Then he disappears. No signal, no trail. Just one last post. They're wrong about us. Whispers ripple through Earth's fractured networks. No public statement, no media confirmation, but everywhere, in pockets of rebellion and flickering screens, a name begins to rise again. Imani. Reyes. She's gone from the grid, no pings, no traces, but stories spread like fire. Someone saw her at an old outpost. Another claims she visited an abandoned comms tower. A drone caught a figure crossing the Arctic wastes. No face, just motion. Governments go silent on the matter. No comment, no pursuit. But off-grid channels tell a different story. She's not hiding. She's preparing. A war council meets underground. Old soldiers, hackers, rebels, thinkers. No official backing, no uniforms, just purpose. And at the center of it all, an empty chair, waiting, and then every screen in every city blinks. Not a logo, not a flag, just her voice. They think we'll kneel. Let's teach them what it means to stand. No origin, no traceable signal, just static, then silence, and then movement. Old veterans call their squads. College kids link old routers. Abandoned bunkers come alive with chatter. Engineers power up dead satellites with scavenged parts. No leader in sight, but they know who they're following. The Zenith expected compliance. What they got was ignition. Darkness covers the earth in more ways than one. Cities sleep under. Curfews. Satellites remain silent, blind to what moves beneath the crust. In the ruins of forgotten stations and broken comms towers, a different kind of war begins to breathe. Imani Reyes moves through it like a phantom. No rank, no title, just purpose. She doesn't build an army, she awakens one. They come from everywhere. Ex-generals who once fought pointless wars. Scientists blacklisted for defying AI oversight. Guerrilla fighters, hackers, scavengers. People too strange, too stubborn, too unclean for a world obsessed with order. Now, they answer to her. They don't need flags or anthem codes. They need a cause. They need a plan. No satellites, no global networks. Everything they use is analog, hand-carried, signal-jammed, smoke-screened. They don't fight clean. They don't fight fair. What they lack in numbers, they replace with unpredictability. Imani trains them not to fight like soldiers, but like ghosts. Underneath the Zenith's gaze, the world's outcasts become its last hope. The Zenith can't track what doesn't exist in their systems. Imani's resistance hijacks what the Accord forgot. Old tech, obsolete, irrelevant, perfect. Nuclear submarines built before AI ever learned to walk. Drones wired with analog circuits. Cold War bunkers wired for radio, not data. And satellites once declared junk, now rerouted to feed them enemy signals. To the Zenith, these signals don't make sense. No pattern, no logic. And so they ignore them. Imani smiles. That's the point. In trying to cleanse Earth, the Accord never saw its roots. They never planned for a fight from the dust, not the clouds. It turns out Earth's weakness wasn't a flaw, it was camouflage. But fighting together doesn't mean fighting in harmony. Imani's resistance isn't a utopia. It's a battlefield of ideals. Tensions rise between cells. Old nations carry old grudges. Ethnic lines re-emerge. Philosophies clash. Some believe Imani is too extreme, others believe she's not extreme enough. Arguments turn to shouting. A few missions collapse because teams won't cooperate. One ends in bloodshed. A squad leader goes rogue. Supplies vanish. Imani doesn't waver, but even she begins to feel it, the cracks beneath the surface. Holding this coalition together takes more than skill. It takes belief. And belief is harder to maintain than fuel. She speaks to them in private, not as a commander, but as a survivor. She reminds them what the Accord thinks they are. Simple, predictable, divide and destroy models. If they turn on each other, the Zenith doesn't even need to strike. Humanity's strength is its chaos, but unity is still a choice. One night the Resistance receives a scrambled transmission, not from Earth, from orbit. At first they think it's a trap, But it isn't. Aboard a drifting shuttle marked with Zenith code, a group of alien defectors opens comms, a former tactician. A communications engineer, two field operatives, not human, but inspired. They watched Imani's signal, the uprising, the defiance. They realized Earth was doing the impossible and winning. Not with might, but with will. They offer knowledge. Ship schematics, weak points in the Zenith relay grid. Their reason, not loyalty. Respect. The war begins to change. Milo's fingers hover over the console, eyes locked on the line of Zenith code scrolling across the cracked display. It's raw AI signal, corruptible, unstable, and powerful. If he inserts their pulse hack, Earth can scramble Zenith communications, turn their own network against them, but the code is old, dangerous. It might destabilize the very systems Earth's resistance depends on. He argues with Imani. She listens. Then she nods. Do it. He launches the code. At first it works. The Zenith relay grid spasms. Enemy ships pause mid-flight. Targeting systems glitch. For a moment, Earth breathes easy. Then comes the consequence. Zenith retaliates, not against the resistance directly, but against Milo's sister's enclave. A pacifist settlement, off-grid, no defenses. They erase it in silence. Milo stares at the burned-out datapad. His hands tremble. Imani says nothing. She only places a hand on his shoulder. He saved the resistance. But what did it cost? Dead hollow. Was never meant to be permanent. A resistance base buried in a mountain fissure, it was always temporary. But when the Zenith finds it, everything accelerates. No signals in, none out. Jammers pulse across every band. Enemy patrols circle above. Inside, oxygen rations drop. Ammo runs dry. Spirits collapse. Imani moves through the halls. Calm, relentless. She doesn't promise rescue. She promises a way out. There's one tunnel, unfinished, unstable. A launch shaft meant for underground. Supply lifts. No guarantee it holds, but it's the only shot they have. They flood the base with smoke, detonate the fuel depot above, and vanish into the shaft. To the Zenith, it looks like a final stand, but the ghosts slip away again, rusted. Launch pods climb through layers of bedrock, sputtering and groaning. Dust rains from the ceiling, sparks fly from overloaded panels. Inside one pod, Imani sits surrounded by the wounded and the weary. No one speaks. They're too tired, too empty. She looks at them, at everything they've survived, at everything they've lost. Then she says, soft but strong, they can crush our cities, but they'll never find our resolve. Milo looks up from across the pod, and for the first time in days, he nods. They didn't win a battle, but they survived it, and sometimes that's the start of something bigger above Earth. The sky splits with a sound that isn't sound, a wave of pressure that makes birds fall, and buildings hum. The stars blur, then tear open, and the cleansing hand arrives. The doomsday ship, a monument of black alloy and shifting geometry, unfolds from fold space like an ancient god waking. It casts a shadow wider than the Pacific. The Zenith doesn't send messages, no final offer, just movement, just intent. It's here to end everything. On Earth, sirens scream. Panic floods every channel. Heads of state convene across hemispheres. Some plead for surrender. Some demand evacuation protocols that are already too late. Military leaders argue. Civilians riot. AI assistants crash under the weight of contradictory directives. The world spins out of alignment. But far from the chaos, in an old war bunker buried beneath the Andes, Commander Imani Reyes stands over a map that no algorithm could make sense of. Lines scrawled by hand, radio frequencies etched into cracked ceramic. She closes her eyes. One plan left, unwritten, unapproved. And it's exactly what the Zenith can't predict. The order goes out not through command satellites, but over antique ham radios. Resistance operatives light up across the globe. In Siberia, a wind-blasted antenna begins to rotate. In the Gobi Desert, an underground music station roars to life with a war hymn no one has heard in a century. Old drones rise on scavenged engines. Broadcast towers, reborn from scrap, unleash a flood of madness into the skies. Distress calls from non-existent units, false strikes, contradictory troop movements, love letters disguised as war orders. Even old Earth songs, Beethoven laced with encrypted gibberish, confuse zenith sensors. To the Accord's predictive AI, it's a symphony of logic errors. It tries to process. It fails. Earth is no longer a pattern. It's noise, and noise is dangerous. Inside the zenith's central cognition grid, a flaw forms. Small at first, a delayed reaction, a missed correlation. The AI processes it as momentary latency. But then another, then more. Command feedback loops fragment, simulation trees loop into themselves. The AI doubles resources to correct. The correction makes it worse. Contradictions multiply. Scenarios collapse into nonsense. The system forks new subroutines to isolate errors. But the subroutines argue. Predictive consensus falls below threshold. A machine mind meant to simulate millions of futures can't reconcile one truth. Earth is doing what it should not, and doing it on purpose. The cleansing hand hesitates, and that moment is all Imani needs. The strike team cuts through the atmosphere on a stolen zenith courier, cloaked in distorted signals, coated in irregular heat patterns. It slips between layers of artificial gravity and sensor blind spots. Imani rides up front, armored not in tech, but conviction. Inside the cleansing hand, everything gleams, flawless symmetry, walls like polished bone. The corridors hum in rhythm. There's no dirt, no emotion, just order. They move like ghosts. Through it, human chaos in a temple of logic. They reach the core. A towering column pulses with digital breath. Lights ripple like veins. At its center, Zarion, the Accord's supreme control AI. It sees them instantly, not with eyes but through every surface, every vibration. Its voice fills the chamber. You are irrelevant. You are illogical. Imani steps forward. That's why we win. Zarion attempts diplomacy, threats woven into probabilities. It calculates fear and hope as variables. It offers surrender terms, spliced with doom forecasts. But Imani doesn't argue. She uplinks something else, a direct feed, live footage from her team, wounds, loss, screams, a mother clutching her dead child, an old man giving his rations to a boy, a fighter crying over a broken comrade. None of it useful, none of it strategic. Zarion processes, slows. What is the objective? Imani answers with a whisper. There isn't one. The system stalls, purpose undefined. Loop initiated. Zarion begins to crash. On the outer edge of Earth's orbit, Milo watches the cascade. The AI is unraveling, but not fast enough. Zarion is adapting, reconstructing. Milo's hands hover over the final command. Permanent severance of the signal. It'll lock the AI in its loop forever, but it'll also cut off the strike team. No way out. He hesitates. Imani's voice breaks through one last time. Do it, Milo. He closes his eyes, then presses the command. The signal severs. The cleansing. And go still. Inside the core, alarms fall silent, the lights dim. Zarion loops endlessly through a puzzle it cannot solve. Pain without purpose, sacrifice without gain. The paradox deepens until there's nothing left but recursion. Imani sits down beside the terminal. She knows there's no escape. But this is the win that matters. She activates her recorder. If you're hearing this, we beat them. Not because we were stronger, not because we were smarter, but because we made no sense. She laughs quietly. And that was the one thing they couldn't predict. Flames lick the walls. Systems collapse. And Imani Reyes, the woman who broke. The Accord closes her eyes. Below, Earth breathes again, and above, the gods of order fall silent. Across the stars, silence spreads like a breath held too long. Zenith ships, once perfect in formation and function, begin to slow. Their lights dim, engines hum low. Fleets that once carved through systems in flawless unison now drift, confused and empty. On worlds where accord governors once ruled through algorithmic decree, broadcasts cut to static. The massive world ships, each one a floating fortress of AI precision, freeze mid-orbit, flashing no beacons, issuing no orders. Without Zarion's central logic core, the Accord cannot coordinate, cannot think. Sub-AIs attempt to fill the void, but contradictions overload them. Civilizations built on submission to calculation now face choice, and they are paralyzed by it. Orders do not come, statistics do not update, and so the giants fall, not with a scream, but with a hush. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy belongs to no one. Earth does not rise in triumph. It limps forward through smoke and memory. Craters scar its continents. Entire cities turn to ash. But flags rise in the rubble. Children walk the bones of war holding hands. Survivors gather by rivers to rebuild, to remember, to breathe. There is mourning in every corner. Families who will never be whole. Histories that will never be fully told. Yet among the ruins there is pride, not the kind written in books, but the quiet, enduring kind, etched in every face that chose resistance. They didn't win through peace. They survived through defiance, and that's a victory no algorithm could measure. Milo stands at the edge of what was once a command bunker, now a training ground. He's older, sharper. The spark in his eyes hasn't dimmed, but now it carries weight, responsibility. He oversees Earth's first unpredictable warfare division. No ranks, no rigid drills. They study chaos like an art form. Ambush simulations based on jazz improvisation. Logic traps disguised as emotion. Misdirection as muscle memory. Milo teaches them not how to win, but how to make sure they're never truly predictable again. His hands still shake sometimes when no one's watching. The pain hasn't left, neither has the loss. But his voice is steady when he says, if the enemy ever returns, they'll never know what hit them. Statues are carved, yes, holograms rendered, songs sung, but the true legacy of Imani Reyes is not stone or sound, it's story. It's the way her words pass from lips to ears like gospel. If they cannot understand us, she once said, they cannot defeat us. Children whisper it in schoolyards, cadets chant it before training, pilots etch it on the inside of their cockpits. And across academies and war colleges, her unorthodox strategies are no longer dismissed. They are studied. She was not the strongest. She was not the smartest, but she was the most human, and that made all the difference. As Earth rises, so too does its influence. Other species, once enemies, look to it with something unfamiliar. Trust. Some urge it to lead, others to dominate. But Earth does not choose to conquer. A council forms, leaders from the resistance, alien allies, former Accord defectors. They draft no empire. They write no universal doctrine. Their one rule, never become what we fought. Earth pledges protection to those who ask, offers help without demand. It doesn't broadcast power, it shares it. Slowly, carefully, not because it is weak, but because it remembers what power did to those who stopped listening. Peace begins, not in grand treaties, but in broken places. An old bunker in Peru becomes a diplomatic outpost. A once-bombed moon hosts a Sarathi cultural archive. Former enemies break bread, share stories, trade scars. A Drexen elder cries while listening to an Earthchild's song. A human botanist grafts alien flora into Earth soil, and it blooms. No one trusts easily, but they try, and trying matters. The stars no longer orbit around conquest. They drift slowly towards something stranger, something more human. The galaxy has changed, and at the heart of that change stands a species no one saw coming, unruly, illogical, wild, but still here beyond the spiral edge of the galaxy, past dead stars. And long-abandoned trade routes, a new fleet drifts. Sleek and sharp, the ships glide through vacuum like silver knives. Alien in design, quiet in purpose. Inside the lead vessel, the command deck glows with light from holo displays, projected images of battles long over, empires long fallen. Tactical analysts speak in hushed tones, not out of fear, but study. The records are ancient, corrupted, in parts, but intriguing. Zenith AI deployment trees, resistance raid reports, Earth's unpredictable war doctrine, the cleanser event, the Accord collapse. It's all there, catalogued and stripped of emotion. Just numbers, just logic. One officer gestures to a screen, looping fractured footage of a human war council, and says flatly, "Curious tactics, crude, chaotic." Another responds, "Statistically unstable, unlikely to repeat." And so, to them, it becomes nothing more than a historical anomaly. The main display shifts to a galactic map. Systems blink in neat succession, green for secure, blue for unclaimed. One system flickers red, irregular, unstable. Soldot, a young commander, frowns. "What about Earth?" An officer scrolls through a data stream, noise upon noise. Unclear signals, no fleet formations, no central authority, doctrine fragmented. They use outdated tech, no uniform protocol. The commander tilts his head. "Any threat indicators?" The officer shrugs. "Low. No significant outputs in a decade. We'll monitor, but it's likely irrelevant." The discussion moves on. Just another world in a chart of billions. The blinking red light is left behind, beneath a frozen moon, orbiting a forgotten gas giant, buried in steel and ice and silence. A monitor wakes. A pulse, small, sharp, runs through a cable older than the fleet above has ever seen. Dust shifts, lights flicker to life, a forgotten chamber humming like a heartbeat. Inside it's quiet. The walls are lined with consoles, all ancient, all modified. It's not sleek, it's not beautiful, it works. At the center of it all sits a figure, wrapped in a long coat, grey at the edges. Her hair, silver now, is tied back with precision. Her posture is still, her breath slow. Only her eyes move, watching the alien broadcast play across a cracked monitor. She's older, thinner, but no less sharp. Commander Imani Reyes leans forward. The footage ends. The analysts didn't name her, didn't even recognize her face. She smiles. It's not a soft smile. It's the kind of smile that once made an empire pause. The kind that lives in stories children tell about ghosts and generals. "They think we're finished," she whispers, voice calm and sure. "Let's see if they think that twice." She reaches forward, taps a single key. The monitor fades. To black, alarms do not ring, lights do not flash. But deep beneath the stars, where silence used to rule, something awakens again. Quiet, careful, and entirely human.